Hello, you lovely, lovely people. You know, our own countries are driving us out. And they literally are. They driving us out of our own countries. For many people on pensions, it's very difficult to make ends meet. As you guys who are here on pensions will probably already know that. But when a lot of people say, why are you in the Philippines? Why are you in Thailand? Why are you in Cambodia and Vietnam? It might not, it might not have originally been the intention for people. Now, I don't get a pension, so it's not related to me. But mine's a different story. But if you're, how can you live in your own country on the pension that they give you? How can you make ends meet? The time you pay the utility bills, and in England there is a community tax, council tax, poll tax, whatever they want to call it. You're left with minus. And if you're paying rent, yes, I know if you're a pensioner you get like a reduction in all these things, but nevertheless there is still a cost. You still have to pay something. And I don't know what the British pension is. Is it 200 quid a week or something like that? I don't know, but I think that the last time I looked it was something like that. So say £800 a month. Now, for £800 a month, where does that get you? You kind of work all of your life to end up with that. That's what they give you, the state pension. Now, many people don't have savings. And many people might say, well, that's your own fault. But listen, if you're in a country where things are so high and you live in from paycheck to paycheck, then it's virtually impossible to save any money. So yes, it's very, very hard. And I can understand why older people who are on pensions come to the Philippines. Or it doesn't necessarily mean the Philippines. It can be somewhere where it's cheaper to live in that country, because our countries are driving us away. They are driving us out because we can't physically afford to live there. Here in the Philippines, it's become a little bit more expensive, but the quality of life, and this is going to get some haters and shitty comments, but the quality of life here for me and for the majority of the people here is much better. The amenities aren't as good sometimes, and the infrastructure is also not as good all the time. But the quality of life is better. It's a slower pace of life. It's not a dog eat dog for us, for foreigners, because that bit of pension that you do get, and if you're from another country in Europe, or Americans have a big pension, I think, in relation to what the British get. But the pensions in Switzerland and Germany is a heck of a lot better than what they get in England. So the reason many are here is not just solely for the women. I think it's because they like this quality of life here for their money. Now, turning it around, if these people on pensions could afford to stay in their home countries reasonably well without struggling, would they still want to leave? Probably not. Probably not, because there would be no need to. I made the decision to leave not because of financial reasons. I just didn't like living the life I was living in the UK, and it was a better life here for me. I took a gamble and it paid off as far as I'm concerned. But I think for many people, when you're on that pension, and the really poor part about it is you work all them years, you sacrifice 35 years, I think it's 35 years in England to get a full pension. Could be 30 years, I can't remember if it's 30 or 35 years of service to get that full pension. And if you don't do that 35 years of work, you can still contribute to your national insurance every month. So you can keep them up, which I do. And to get so little for it, to get so little for them, you know, for those years of service that you did. Many people are quite lucky because they've got private pension funds. You know, they thought for the future. But unfortunately, many people who were in low-paid jobs in some factories, they couldn't afford to take any more salary or any more money from their salary to invest in a private pension. So it's like, you know, it's like a vicious snowball. The people who already had a good salary could invest into more, which means when they get to the pension age, they get more back. But for the poorer people who were on maybe minimum wage, they couldn't afford to take anything more out of their salary to enable them to pay into a private scheme where they could get a little bit more when they retired. So it's like that vicious circle. It's like the poor stay poor, and this has always been part of life everywhere, and the rich get richer. That's how it is, because the rich people can afford to take more chances and they can afford to lose money if it, you know, doesn't go right. But the poor people, or the people on the breadline, can't afford to take chances because every pound is accounted for. And of course, even if you have a day off work sick in England, then or a week off and you get statutory sick pay, it's actually less. So you're putting yourself into debt. So you can't even afford to be sick in the UK. You can't even afford to be ill. Because you are ill, then you get behind on your payment. You get behind, and once you're behind on a payment, it's very, very difficult to get back on top of it again. And it's more of a worry, and it's more of a, you know, it's troublesome, isn't it? It's troublesome. So like I said, you know, countries, especially the UK, is driving us out. Is driving people out. Solely because the pension that they receive is just not enough to live on. And it's terrible. Absolutely terrible. And they don't take care of the pensioners in the UK. Look at the people in the UK during the cold months. Many pensioners can't even afford to keep their houses warm. And they get a small cold weather payment, I believe. This is when I was there. And, you know, my father used to get it. He used to get a cold weather payment if the temperature was below zero for so many days consecutively. And he used to get a small payment, which was meant to be to put towards heating costs. Oh, that's very good of the government, isn't it? You know, if it's minus temperatures, you know, we'll give you an extra tenner, you know, like an extra £10 so you can put your heating on for 5 minutes. It's absolutely hideous how the government don't take care of the pensioners. And the pensioners, they've put so much into the country, you know, working in factories, working in wherever they were working, just to contribute to the country. And now it's time for them to get their money back from the government. A tiny amount of what they contributed is absolutely diabolical. It really is. And I do feel for people who are still in the UK now, in these winter months, sat there with a blanket around them, scared to put their central heating on because they haven't got the finances to pay for it at the end of the month. It beggars belief, guys, doesn't it? It beggars belief. And there's a lot of other European countries who take a lot more care of their pensioners than they do in England. And I keep saying England because that's the only country I know that do this kind of thing, you know, that don't really take care of the pensioners. And they really don't. You know, my father, you know, he's dead and gone now, but, you know, I used to pop down and see him. And, you know, during those winter, I said, Dad, come and stay with me. Come and stay in the house. You know, I've got like an open fire and things like that. You know? And my father was a very proud man. No, son, I'm all right. I'll stay here. No, it's okay. I said, Dad, put your heating on. I'll pay for it. And my father wouldn't because he was such a proud man. And I used to feel sorry for him because there's nothing that I could do or say to him to make him come and live with me. He wanted his independence. And, you know, he had breathing problems. He got very sick in the end. And of course, during the winter, he was even more sick with his breathing because it was damn cold. He was breathing in -degree temperatures into his lungs. Did the government care? Did they, heckers? They didn't. And it makes me mad. It makes me mad. I was talking, you know, to a guy here. He's a British guy. And he doesn't live here. He just comes and goes. And he was saying, Steve, if you ever come back to the UK, you're mental. You're crazy. And the only reason he goes back to the UK is because he works. You know, he's not on a pension and he can't afford to leave the UK to come here full time. He has to go back and work, and he goes back for so long and comes back here. And he said the prices of things in the UK, like fish and chips and things like this, is just astronomically expensive, where fish and chips used to be a poor man's meal years ago. And that's just one instance. So why would I want to go back to the UK? They probably don't want us there anyway. You know, the UK are probably wanting the pensioners to leave, because then it's it's taken away the need for them to use their national health service if they live in here and they don't go back. So it frees up a bit of that. This is how they think. This is how governments think. You know, they don't say, oh, stay in the country, stay here. We will give you more money to stay in the country because God knows you deserve it. You know, you've worked hard all your lives. But they don't do that. They don't do that. And it's just a terrible place. So that's why I think there's a lot of people in these kind of countries where it's cheaper to live. Not necessarily because we are losers. We're not losers, guys. You know, everyone wants a better life. And if by moving to a different country will give you a better life, that doesn't mean to say we're losers or we're not patriotic to our country. It means we can't live in the country anymore because of the prices. And living on a pension, we can't, you know, being on a pension, by the time you pay everything out, you can't even go to a bar for a pint of beer. You know, you've worked all your life and you've spent all your money in the country, you know, buying a house or whatever you've done, you're contributing to the economy over the years, buying this, buying that. And it comes of an age where you need a little bit of help, you don't get it. And the time they spend all this money out on, like I said, you know, the amenities and the council tax and everything else, water, well, that comes under the utilities. They haven't got enough money for food. Not enough money for food, and especially in these cold months, like I just said, because it costs more money to keep your place heated. But like I said, many pensioners are scared to actually turn that dial round. They're scared. And do you know what they said in England a while ago that I was reading? And it said, keep one room warm. Keep one room warm. God almighty. That's what they say to you. Keep one room warm in your house. Beggars believe, guys, doesn't it? You know. And these guys who fought, you know, I don't think there's many of them left now. These guys, you know, these guys who fought, both my grandfathers fought in the war. You know, and they, you know, my father's dad, he had he had his fingers blown off in the war, and he had like a war pension. And it was so small, guys, really, it was so small. And I used to see him, you know, because I used to pop round and see my grandfather quite often. Because the stories he told of the war, which I was always interested in. And I could see it in his face, how disappointed he was, you know, after. And he just didn't serve in the war. He was, I think he did 16 years or 17. No, he didn't. He did 22 years. He did 22 years in the military. And at the end of it, what did he have? Nothing. And because, you know, his wife died, my grandmother died, he was on his own. And again, he was a proud man. He wouldn't come and live, you know, with his son, my dad. He stayed on his own till he died. He died in the house. And my sister found him, actually. She found him. And what a poor existence he had because of little money. And he was such a proud man, he wouldn't take anything off of anybody. So for you guys who think that we come to these sort of places because we losers, you're far from it. You're far from it. It's nothing to do with that. Everyone wants to better their life. Everybody wants to better their life, regardless who we are, rich, poor. Fortunately for the rich people, they can go to the Bahamas and buy houses and stay there, you know. But for the poorer people in society, they come to places like this. Not because they are shitty poor, it's because they can't make ends meet in their own country because their own country doesn't take care of them anymore. And not for a long time they haven't. And it's terrible. It's terrible. You know, sometimes it's like, it's shameful, you know, to call yourself, or for me, to call myself British. Shameful sometimes. I am British now, I'll always be British. I'll tell you something else and all, guys. If I was young enough and there was a war, and they asked me to fight for the country, do you know what? I'd be the first to run away from it. I'm not fighting for my country. What would they give us? And after, when you come out of the war with post-traumatic stress syndrome, you see all these veterans on the street where the government has just tossed them aside. Nah. Look after number one, guys. And that's yourself. That's yourself. And that truly is yourself. Anyway, that's it. If you like the video, again, thumbs up and a subscription. Doesn't cost anything, like we all know. It's all free to do that. My trees are growing very well, look, guys, look. I've got this is a rambutan tree. We planted these, they were little seedlings. Now they're here now. And yeah, this is the papaya, a dwarf papaya. Another rambutan tree, many lemon trees, or bushes, privets, whatever, bushes, aren't they? And also, my favourite, the avocado tree, which is coming on good. And look, guys, look, we've actually got lemons coming. Woohoo! American lemons, the big ones. So happy days. There are many flowers coming. Hopefully they will take and we'll have more lemons. Thank you guys, listen, for taking the time, and I really do appreciate you, my followers and subscribers. I do really appreciate it. Take good care, guys, wherever you are in the world, and thank you for putting up with me. Bye bye.